Good evening, men. Good evening, gentlemen. We have a great show for you tonight. So let's begin. So, right now, Israel is continuing its medieval style siege on Palestine. So far, they've killed 700 children, is a recent estimate that came out that Israel has killed 700 Palestinian children. And this war has only been going on for like 2 weeks at this point. But even though there's only been a war going on for like 2 weeks, they've already killed 700 children. I'm so um, very obviously much worse than what happened to Israel. So obviously, uh, what's worse than what happened at the hang gliding event. So I want to talk about some reactions that have recently come out regarding this. So Ron DeSantis. So I think maybe there's some nuance here because Ron DeSantis had two takes in this speech, and one of them I agree with, and one of them I don't agree with. So he said, we cannot let any of the Palestinian refugees that this war is creating get into America. I concur. We should not, so we should, I think he's right here when he said we should just make it so the Palestinian refugees just go to other Arab countries, go to other parts of the Middle East. Because we don't want them in Europe, we don't want them in America, we don't want them in Canada. Keep them out of the West. That is important. So I definitely agree with him there. We have enough Arabs as it is in the West, so we don't want more. That's not to not being racist here. That's not a racist statement. I'm not saying I hate Arabs. I'm just saying we as white people should be the majority, and influx. So putting in more Arabs into America would tarnish that statistic. White people should be the majority in America and Canada and England and Germany, Poland, France, all over the world. Or all over the world, at least in the West, for now. Of course, I'm kidding. I just in the West. But here's where I disagree. He said all Palestinians are anti-Semites. So all Palestinians are anti-Semites. That's not true. But if that was true, the Jewish people would deserve that. Because given how Jewish people treat Palestinians, they would deserve it if every Palestinian hated their guts. If someone took a poll in America before Civil War in the South and said, all black people in the South hate white people, then do you think the Democrats and the liberals and the leftists would be like, oh, man, these black people are being terrible. Someone needs to teach these black people manners. They shouldn't hate white people. Democrats and liberals and leftists would all say, oh, yes, white people deserve to get that hatred because they are all owning the black people. So of course the black people would hate them. This is no different. And I don't think the black people should, but I'm just pointing out the whole hypocrisy of liberals regarding this issue. Liberals are always freaking out over anti-Semitism among Gentile people, but Gentile people are victimized by Jews on a daily basis. So by that same logic, Gentile people should by all means be allowed to be anti-Semitic. By their logic, we should be able to. So liberals always say what they always say is reverse racism isn't real. This is what they're constantly saying. Reverse sexism isn't real. Misandry isn't real. You hear it all the time. They're constantly saying this. And how did they come to such ridiculous, nonsensical, erroneous conclusions? How they came to these awful conclusions is that they say, well, we have all these systems of power in place. So white people are given more privilege than POCs, and men are given more privilege than women. So therefore, only hatred. So if it's hatred from the group on top towards the bottom, then that's racism, sexism, misogyny. But if it's hatred from the bottom to the top, then that's nothing. That's not even real. That's just fake. That's just in your imagination. This is their policy that racism against white people doesn't exist. When Black people call for genocide against white people, that's not racist. When Black people say white people shouldn't exist, or when Black people in the cases of the Black Israelites, Black people saying that white people aren't human and that white people should be enslaved, reduced to property, and made to do constant hard manual labor. They claim that this is not racist. They believe this isn't racist. I think that's ridiculous. I think it absolutely is racism and sexism and misandry. I think anti-white racism and misandry are both real things that actually exist in the world. And I don't think that there's a system of power where white people are over POCs. In many ways, white people are treated worse than people of color. So the whole thing is ridiculous. But if for example, I play devil's advocate and say they're right about that, with given systems of power, hatred coming from the oppressed towards the group that's responsible for oppression, this isn't actual hatred, then that means that it's okay for Gentile people to be anti-Semitic, because Gentile people are oppressed by Jews. They're oppressed by globalists. They're oppressed by Zionists. So they should be able to feel hatred against the Jew, feel hatred against Jewish people. Because according to their logic, it's not real hatred. So according to their logic, anti-Semitism shouldn't exist, because Jews are above Gentile people. So hatred coming from Gentile people towards Jews, or telling them that Jews are inferior, whatever it may be, that isn't real. Anti-Semitism doesn't exist, because hatred for Jews by Gentiles just isn't exist. So we have one take I agree with from Ron DeSantis, and then one awful take that's just terrible. Just the freaking out of anti-Semitism. Will you just shut up? Just shut up, Ron DeSantis. And shut up everyone who's whining about anti-Semites. The people who put up the faces on the truck and said, Harvard's anti-Semites, or anti-Semites of Harvard's. Just shut up. Go kill yourself. Go get a noose or get a gun. I don't care how. I want you dead. So in other news, George Bush, he was one of the people who were saying, oh, Israel, get them, Israel. Take that, Palestine. Get them, Israel. George Bush was one of the worst U.S. presidents we've had in all of history. I'm just going to say he was one of the worst. He failed the American people. He failed white people. He failed the white race. And he was a globalist puppet. He did horrible foreign wars for rich men that hurt the white working class, and he shouldn't have a say on anything. George Bush isn't fit to have opinions about his local McDonald's taken seriously, let alone have his opinions about international wars taken seriously. So there's been multiple times where even so, as viewers of this channel know, as long viewers of this channel know, I hate the Daily Wire. I think the Daily Wire is garbage. I think it's awful. But there's been many cases where I sort of where Candace Owens gets a smile from me, I guess you could say. For example, when Kanye West put out his anti-Semitic tweet, Candace Owens wanted to have Kanye West on her show to talk about it. Ben Shapiro surely wasn't happy about that. Mr. Shapiro was not in a good mood with that. But Candace Owens got in a fight with Megyn Kelly because Megyn Kelly, the Fox News person, was defending that organization. So there was a petition around Harvard to support Hamas. And a bunch of Harvard students signed the petition. And this organization made it public. And the idea was they would show it so no one who signed that could get jobs prospects. And as I said earlier, they put their faces up on a truck and drove it around for everyone to see and said, the faces like Harvard's anti-Semites, or I'm paraphrasing, but something along those lines. Megyn Kelly was defending this, and Candace Owens was saying, no, this is a terrible idea. I believe Candace Owens actually does support Israel. So that's bad, but Candace Owens at least had enough human decency to tell Megyn Kelly, no, that's not bad. It was mainly just 19-year-olds. It was just a bunch of 19-year-olds. And a lot of them had plans for jobs after they graduated Harvard. They had signed a bunch of deals with jobs that told them, once you graduate from Harvard, you can work with us. And the organization that did that, it got that cut off. They told them, no, you can't work for us anymore. Where we told you could come work for us, but we've changed our minds. We don't want you anymore because you signed this. So I believe it was all Democrats who did that. So I suspect most of the people who were signing that had terrible ideas and were wrong about almost everything. But the fact that this happened is absolutely outrageous. You should be angry that this happened. Israel just killed 700 children. That's what a lot of experts say. Half of the Gaza Strip population, 1 million people, are under the age of 15. And Israel is massacring Palestine right now. They're massacring the Gaza Strip more specifically. There's politicians saying that we should nuke the Gaza Strip. Israel is shooting Palestinian men, women, and children. Israeli politicians are openly calling for genocide. Netanyahu said that they're human animals, so he thinks they're animals. Goyim, Goyim, Goyim are animals. He's admitting that Goyim aren't people, in his opinion. So you can support a country that's killing children by the masses. Everyone's waving Israeli flags and saying and endorsing Israel. You can endorse a nation, a country, a fake country that is killing children by the boatload, and is seriously considering committing a nuclear holocaust against the children. They're about to do what is going to be quite likely the worst genocide of this century. What Israel is doing to Palestine right now and is going to do to Palestine might go down in history as the worst genocide of this century, if the Jews don't exterminate white people. Of course, I'm joking with that, but this is serious. So they're doing that, and that's okay to support that. But since some basically children, the only 1 or 2 years away from being children, people supported an organization that killed a sliver of the number of men, women, and children, as the Israeli government is doing right now and has been doing since the 40s. They're going to get their lives ruined. They did get their lives ruined. There's people sending them death threats every day. They lost their opportunities for getting a job. Everyone's seen their faces and everyone knows their names. Everyone knows their names. Everyone sees their faces. That's what we're going to do. That's what America is going to do. America. Fox and CNN have done a terrible job of handling this. So when Fox and CNN were describing the deaths and the massacre at the concert, they said they murdered women and children. They murdered women and children. But when it describes all of the women and children that Israel purposefully blew up or shot, blasted to smithereens, they said died among escalating violence. Why would you say murdered for one instance and died among escalating violence for another instance when both were intentional, when both were purposeful? Both purposeful killings of women and children, civilian women and children, by grown men in positions of relative power over the dead. In the first case, I'm not even sure if it was in a position of power. The Palestinians aren't citizens of Israel. They're treated like trash by their own government, by their own country. So this is something I want to talk about. There have been times in my life where I like Fox News. I think, because I I know a lot of people think Tucker Carlson has some bad problems, but I'm a sort of Tucker Carlson fan. So there were a lot of things I liked about Tucker Carlson, and there were a lot of things I would sort of think. There's a lot of points in my life where I think positive thoughts about Fox News. I think, oh, Fox News is doing such a good job of keeping so many Mexicans out of our country. Um, or, oh, Fox News is doing such a good job of going hard on the criminals, the drug dealers, the thieves. Oh, Fox News did such a good job of pointing out how awful the BLM riots were and how much damage was done in the BLM riots. But let's never forget this. Let's never forget that Fox News believes that Jews are superior to Gentile people. Jews were massacred, were slaughtered in a music concert, and they describe that as Jews being murdered. Gentile people were slaughtered in their own homes by bombs in the Gaza Strip. And Fox News described that as died among escalating violence. Fox News believes that Jews are superior to Gentile people. Jews have, the life of a Jew has more value and more worth than the life of a Gentile. And they are racist towards Gentile people, against Gentile people, and in support of the Jews. Fox News and CNN are both endorsing the genocide of Palestinian people. How can they do this? How can they have a good conscience calling for massacres? Because why should we care about Goyim? Goyim are human animals. A goy means an animal. So who cares if they die? Who cares if they get massacred? This is a full-scale genocide, likely the worst genocide of the century, and America is putting its stamp of approval on it. America is putting her stamp of approval on what's going to go down in history, if the history books are honest, as what might be the worst genocide of this century. I'm blanking on his name, but quite frankly, I don't care. He's he's awful. He's an evil person, so I'm not going to care about his name. This politician walked around the Senate in an IDF uniform, the uniform of the men who are killing, slaughtering women and children in the Gaza Strip right now, slaughtering Arab women and children in the Gaza Strip right now, and just said on Fox News, "Oh, the Palestinian people are Arab Nazis, Arab Nazis." They're not. Not. He didn't say Hamas. Members of Hamas are Arab Nazis. He said Palestinians are Palestinians. So there's a million things wrong with this. First off, the belief that there's only one kind of evil. So in our society, how the world works right now, in the West at least, is everyone expected to view what a moral compass should look like as a donut. The center of the donut is Hitler. And the farther away you are from Hitler, the better you are. So Hitler wouldn't have mutilated his son's genitals in an attempt to turn his son into a girl, his little boy. So we should do that. Hitler believed there were two genders. So we should believe there aren't that there are more than two genders, or that gender is a social construct. This is our view. So the fact that we're just labeling anyone who disagrees with us or anyone we don't like Nazis, there's people who say Antifa are Nazis, even though they're literally anarchists, and most of them are communists. So that's ridiculous. That is based on a worldview, which is ridiculous and awful and terrible. But with that aside, let's not beat around the bush here. He is a genocidal person. So in our society, what is the mainstream belief that has been pushed down our throats about Nazis? That you should need to kill Nazis. In every movie, the villains, they make them look like National Socialists. In every movie that's taken place in World War II, it's all about killing National Socialists. You always see movies about killing National Socialists. So by comparing the Palestinian people to National Socialists, he's calling for a genocide. Let's not beat around the bush. He's genocidal. He wants genocide. He wants to see the Arab children dead. He wants to see the Arab women dead. He wants to see the Arab men dead. He wants them all dead. He's evil. He's an evil demon, an evil monster. And he shouldn't be allowed to vote. He should be rotting in a jail cell. So there's two common phrases on the internet that I hear a lot that I think are very appropriate. A lot of people use them lightly and use them in a very comedic manner and sort of think of them as memes, just something to laugh about. You saw people posting this stuff in like the comments under Santa Inc. and that sort of stuff. But even though a lot of times people think of it as being silly, I think it is very serious right now. So stuff like the Jew cries out in pain as he strikes you, or remember this one very carefully. The Jew will always say what has happened to him, but never why. Those are perfect metaphors for what's going on right now. The Jew is saying what has happened to him. The fact that people were massacred in the music concert. But he's not saying why. The Jew isn't saying why. The Jew will never say why. Why? Palestine is for the Palestinian people, or at least for Gentile people. Whatever it's for, it's not for Jews. England stole a piece of Palestine and had it conquered by Jews, had it invaded and occupied by Jews. So the Jews stole this piece of land. Everyone knew this was theft. Everyone knew it was evil, but we turned a blind eye to the Jews since you're not allowed to criticize them. And now they've been they've been violently oppressing the Arab population of their country ever since. the Arab and Muslim populations of their country. So they did all they just recently they were going to get in there. They were I believe they did do this, destroy whole apartment buildings that people need to live in to make for freeways. So they're saying what has happened to them. They're saying what has happened to Jews, but they're not saying why it has happened to Jews. I think that's a perfect note to end this show. I have a lot of things I want to talk about, but it's getting late at night. So I think I'm going to say it in another show.